Bedingungen schuf, führte dies zu einem Wirtschaftsaufschwung und guten Geschäften für beide Seiten. Deshalb verließen zu verschiedenen Zeiten tausende Menschen ihre Heimat, um in Russland Wurzeln zu schlagen. Das ist Evtukhov, ein Stadtviertel von Moskau, der russischen Hauptstadt. Heute ist es das Zentrum der Stadt. Die frühere Nemeskaya Sloboda, die deutsche Vorstadt, gegründet vor 500 Jahren. Den Namen Evtukhov hat Zar Peter der Große einem seiner engsten Freunde und Vertrauten gewidmet, Franz Lefort. Er stammte aus Genf, ging aber in die Geschichte als einer der Gründer der Zarenarmee ein. Sein Rat an seine Freunde, aber auch an einfache Kaufleute war denkbar einfach. Man muss mit Russland Geschäfte machen. St. Petersburg, eine der schönsten Städte der Welt, war 200 Jahre lang die Hauptstadt Russlands. Heute dauert die Reise von Moskau nach Petersburg mit dem Sapsan-Schnellzug, dem Wanderfalken, auf der 658 Kilometer langen Strecke nur 3,5 Stunden. Ein deutsch-russisches Leuchtturmprojekt. Der erste Passagier des von Siemens gebauten Zuges war am 19. Dezember 2009 der russische Präsident Wladimir Putin. Unter dem Dach der deutsch-russischen Auslandshandelskammer haben sich 11 deutsche Firmen zur deutschen Initiative zusammengeschlossen, um mit russischen Partnern weitere Hochgeschwindigkeitsstrecken in Russland zu bauen. 3 Jahre vor dieser Reise des russischen Präsidenten von Moskau in seine Heimatstadt Petersburg fand am 27. April 2006 ein bedeutendes Treffen zwischen Wladimir Putin und Bundeskanzlerin Angela Merkel statt. Die 8. Runde der deutsch-russischen Regierungskonsultationen. Damals wurde auf höchster politischer Ebene die Gründung der deutsch-russischen Auslandshandelskammer als Nachfolger des Verbandes der deutschen Wirtschaft beschlossen. Die feierliche Gründungszeremonie fand 1,5 Jahre später, am 14. Dezember 2007 in Moskau statt.
Мне выпала большая честь стоять именно у истоков создания внешнеторговой палаты, которая была правопреемником Союза немецкой экономики. И 14 декабря 2007 года мы вместе с министром экономики Германии Михаэлем Глоссом мы заложили очень неплохой фундамент успешного развития палаты. И, конечно, я с большим удовольствием слежу, с большим интересом слежу. Мы тесно сотрудничаем с ВТП, как Восточный комитет немецкой экономики.
Die deutsch-russische Auslandshandelskammer war, ist und bleibt der wichtigste und größte Begleiter der bilateralen Wirtschaftsbeziehungen. Um die Bedeutung dieser Beziehungen zu verstehen, lohnt der Blick auf ein weiteres Treffen auf höchster Ebene. Vor 20 Jahren besuchte der damalige Bundeskanzler Gerhard Schröder als einer der ersten westlichen Regierungschefs Russlands neuen Präsidenten Wladimir Putin. Und zwar an einem symbolträchtigen Datum, dem 12. Juni, dem russischen Nationalfeiertag. Auch die erste ausländische Unternehmensdelegation, die der neue Präsident zu einem Gespräch empfing, war bezeichnenderweise eine deutsche. Sie wurde von Verbandspräsident Otto Wolff von Amerongen angeführt. Und das ist Orenburg 1980. Der Beginn der ersten Erdgasleitung mit dem Namen Sojus, Vereinigung. Sie wurde dank des ersten legendären Röhren-Erdgasgeschäfts gebaut. Rainer Hartmann ist als Vertreter von Uniper, dem früheren Ruhrgas, seit vielen Jahrzehnten im Energiegeschäft einer der Säulen der deutsch-russischen Wirtschaftspartnerschaft. Hartmann war Mitglied im ersten Vorstand des Verbandes der deutschen Wirtschaft und viele Jahre Präsident der Association of European Business, kurz AEB.
Eine ähnliche Situation haben wir ja heute wieder. Die Amerikaner tun alles Mögliche und Unmögliche, kann man schon sagen, um Nord Stream 2 zu verhindern. Ich will nicht in die Politik jetzt überschwenken, aber Nord Stream 2 ist ein wirtschaftliches Projekt, voll finanziert von freien Unternehmern und dem großen Partner der russischen Seite, die Gazprom, die seit 50 Jahren Gas liefert an Deutschland. Das heißt also, eine Abhängigkeit von Russland, wie wir es jetzt immer hören, von den USA, dass wir uns in diese Abhängigkeit bringen, das haben wir 50 Jahre nicht erlebt und ich bin ziemlich sicher, dass es auch in den nächsten 50 Jahren genauso gut weitergeht mit unserem Partner.
Als einer der Väter des Röhren-Erdgasgeschäfts ist Otto Wolff von Amerongen in die Geschichte eingegangen. Er war der erste Präsident des Verbandes der deutschen Wirtschaft und stand von 1952 bis 2000 dem legendären Ostausschuss der deutschen Wirtschaft vor. Amerongens Verbindungen in die Sowjetunion gingen auf seinen Vater zurück, der in den 20er Jahren so wichtige Geschäfte mit Moskau machte, dass Lenin vom Politbüro der Kommunistischen Partei forderte, mit der Firma Otto Wolff schnell und gegen den Widerstand einiger Parteigenossen einen Vertrag abzuschließen.
Otto von Amerongen действительно легендарная личность и для германского бизнеса, и для российско-советско-германских экономических отношений. Я думаю, что у него получалось то, что не всегда у политиков получалось, и получалось то, что не получалось у предпринимателей, потому что он сочетал вот эти два качества.
Heute ist eine der wichtigsten von jährlich mehr als 300 Veranstaltungen der Deutsch-Russischen Auslandshandelskammer nach dem legendären Unternehmer benannt, der Otto Wolff von Amerongen AHK Mittelstandspreis. Natürlich sind praktisch alle DAX-Konzerne wie Volkswagen, Bayer und Heidelberg Zement Mitglied der Kammer. Kleinere und mittelständische Firmen wie Enders, Vika Mera und Rehau sowie Familienunternehmen wie Knauf, Henkel und Globus aber stellen 90% der Mitglieder. Der Otto Wolff von Amerongen Mittelstandspreis wird alle 2 Jahre in 3 Kategorien vergeben. Das beste deutsche mittelständische Unternehmen in Russland, das beste russische in Deutschland und die innovativste Firma. (2018) gewann die Firma Econiva den Mittelstandspreis. Eine einzigartige deutsch-russische Erfolgsgeschichte, geschrieben von Stefan Dürr. Vor 2 Jahrzehnten startete Dürr mit 400 Kühen und 5 Angestellten in der Oblast Woronesch. Inzwischen sind daraus mehr als 180.000 Kühe und Rinder geworden, auf einer Fläche, die mit 570.000 Hektar zweimal größer ist als das deutsche Bundesland Saarland. Der deutsche Bauer hat nicht nur die größte Milchwirtschaft in Russland, dem größten Flächenstaat der Erde, aufgebaut. Er ist inzwischen auch die Nummer 1 in Europa und Nummer 7 weltweit.
Роль торгово-промышленной палаты действительно была очень важна. Именно когда мы начали, как маленькие компании, вообще с нуля начали, нам такая, конечно, помощь очень так была полезна, потому что что-то подсказали, в чем-то там помогли, защита определенная так и была. Именно когда ты маленький, еще в то время была чужая страна, когда ты это начинаешь, конечно, это хорошо иметь такой, скажем так, такая поддержка. Так что очень важно было, и это сейчас и до сих пор очень важно, это обмен опытом с другими коллегами, тем более из других отраслей.
Auch der russische Präsident spricht davon, wie wichtig nachhaltige Landwirtschaft ist. Zur Nachhaltigkeit hat die deutsch-russische Auslandshandelskammer mit russischen Partnern und einer Aufschubfinanzierung des deutschen Umweltministeriums die einzigartige Online-Plattform GermanTech geschaffen. Sie präsentiert modernste deutsche Umwelttechnologien für russische Unternehmen, Städte und Gemeinden, zum Beispiel für die Abfallreform in Russland. Eine weitere Aufgabe, die der russische Präsident der Regierung gegeben hat, ist die Erhöhung der Arbeitsproduktivität. Die deutschen Firmen in Russland sind dafür schon jetzt ein ausgezeichnetes Beispiel und Vorbild und Partner für nicht wenige russische Unternehmen.
Они являются тоже драйвером производительности труда, потому что они показывают пример, как это можно сделать. И часто немецкие предприятия на территории России, они, может быть, даже более современные, чем в Германии, потому что это в основном новые заводы, они используют абсолютно лучшую технологию, потому что российский клиент, он очень требователен. Российские покупатели хотят только лучшее качество.
Beim großen internationalen Wirtschaftsforum 2019 in St. Petersburg unterzeichneten die Wirtschaftsminister beider Länder, Peter Altmaier und Maxim Oreschkin, ein Memorandum zur Effizienzpartnerschaft. Erfahrungen auszutauschen, Unternehmen zu helfen, fällt leichter mit einem Netz, das sich über ganz Russland spannt. Außer der Zentrale in Moskau ist die deutsch-russische Auslandshandelskammer in St. Petersburg mit einer großen Filiale vertreten und in 6 Städten mit Regionalbevollmächtigten in Jekaterinburg, Nischni Nowgorod, Samara, Krasnodar, Nowosibirsk und Wladiwostok. Wladiwostok nimmt in der Arbeit der Kammer einen besonderen Platz ein. Die deutsch-russische Auslandshandelskammer unterstützt die Initiative von Lissabon bis Wladiwostok. Ihr Ziel ist die Schaffung eines gemeinsamen Wirtschaftsraumes zwischen der Europäischen Union (EU) und der Eurasischen Wirtschaftsunion (EAWU). Der Initiative haben sich inzwischen mehr als 100 Firmen aus 8 europäischen Ländern angeschlossen.
В нынешнем мире даже великая держава Россия или Европейский Союз недостаточно сильны, чтобы играть очень значительную роль. Нужно сотрудничество. Это не мы придумали, это наша компания так считает. По нашим опросам, если 2 года тому назад только 35% считали, что ЕАЭС важен, сейчас это число удвоилось.
Innovationen und Digitalisierung sind heute weitere Schwerpunkte der Arbeit der deutsch-russischen Auslandshandelskammer. Die German-Russian Initiative for Digitalization, kurz GRID, vereint bei Digitalisierung und Industrie 4.0 das Beste aus beiden Ländern. Bei GRID sind dabei die 3 Unternehmensverbände RSPP, Ostausschuss und AHK sowie mehr als ein Dutzend bedeutender Technologiekonzerne wie Siemens, SAP und Volkswagen sowie Rostelekom, Kaspersky und Cyfra.
Наши компании неоднократно выезжали в Германию, в разные земли, Баден-Вюртемберг, Баварию, знакомились с работой предприятий, которые уже в индустрии 4.0 функционируют в самых разных отраслях. В равной степени мы тоже считаем, ну, если не удивили, то ввели, так сказать, наших немецких коллег в курс цифровых решений на российских предприятиях. Так что мы, с одной стороны, в рамках этих обмена бизнес-миссиями увидели, что стороны на равных могут разговаривать друг с другом, а самое главное, что они могут быть полезны друг другу в том, чтобы за счет партнерства и кооперации, условно говоря, успешно конкурировать с компаниями из третьих стран.
Auch wir selbst, die Kammer und die Delegation der deutschen Wirtschaft, waren gut vorbereitet, als die Maßnahmen zur Coronavirus-Bekämpfung 2020 die Umstellung der vielen Veranstaltungen auf Online-Formate nötig machte. Wir hatten bereits vor Jahren agiles Management eingeführt, beim weltweiten Innovationswettbewerb unserer Mutterorganisation DIHK eine Goldmedaille gewonnen und für uns, unsere Partner und Mitglieder, zügig eine eigene Online-Veranstaltungsplattform entwickelt. Der russische Deutsche Franz Lefort hat einmal zu seinem russischen Freund, Zar und Reformer Peter dem Großen gesagt, unsere Vergangenheit war großartig. Aber wie wird die Zukunft aussehen? Sie ist viel wichtiger. Diese Frage stellen wir dem gegenwärtigen Chef der Kammer.
Мы идем ногу со временем, мы слушаем те вызовы, которые есть. Мы стараемся быть максимально близко к нашему бизнесу, немецкому бизнесу, российскому бизнесу. Ну, мы в год нашей юбилеи перешагали границы 1000 членов палаты. В этом есть своя символика, потому что Россия и Германия уже 1000 лет соседи. Там были ужасные моменты, 2 ужасные войны. Но все-таки мы соседи. И еще 1000 лет мы будем соседами.
Добрый день всем, кто смотрит нашу трансляцию.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Wladimir Nikitenko. I'll be the moderator of this Eurasian Economic Union in the global logistics chain. In order to save time, I'll introduce our speakers during the discussion. Hopefully this dialogue will be most productive and fruitful. Now some technical comment from me. Ruslan Davydov will join in our discussion a bit later. In October 2020, the Russian-German Chamber of Commerce and the representation of German economy in Russia held a survey on customs services, and they said that logistics chains 67% of the companies have suffered from this pandemic, with 30% having cut down their turnover. 4 months have elapsed. We have drawn the bottom line of the year. Hopefully 2021 will be more saturated with business. And at the beginning of our today's discussion, I'd like to check it out, how the current perception of the situation coincides with our view of October. So I would suggest to open up, please, on your smartphones and PCs, the website slide.com, and this 28806 code. You can see here now, it's all on your screens. And probably the easiest way is just to turn on a camera on your smartphone and just to scan the QR code, which you can also see right now on your screen, and then you'll be able to answer the question: to what extent failures in the global logistics chains resulting from the pandemic have affected your companies? We have three optional answers. The turnover has been reduced insignificantly, then significantly, and no effect of the failure at all. Let us get back to the results of this survey later. Now I'd like to go over immediately to our speakers and ask our today's first question. The acting CEO of the European, North America and CIS Department and the Multilateral Economic Cooperation of the Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation, Irina Deineko. Irina, thank you that you have joined us today. Our maternal institution is our World Business. We are also holding a survey. So according to this, 31% of the companies globally have mentioned the failure of the global logistics chains as a significant adverse factor for their companies globally. Do we have any estimate to what extent the real economy sector has suffered? And if there are the sufferers among these industries, what are they? Good afternoon, dear colleagues and the participants of the conference. Presently, we're implementing our current policy according to the respective agreement of the Eurasian Economic Union. We have the key areas of industrial cooperation. This respective document dates back to 2015, and our key industries where we hold our coordinated policy, automobile construction, metallurgy, and many other industries. So all we see and we track the condition of all these companies, the state of those during the pandemic, and in principle. When we discuss the key tools that we use at our Eurasian Economic Union, EAEU, that's well, oftentimes the documents are generated and they contain the key areas. The respective document contains the important information, not to duplicate our projects later, what is manufactured in the Eurasian Economic Union, and in the information about imports that could be manufactured in the EAEU area or elsewhere. The respective document will be certainly adjusted, updated later. The respective map will be put up where it's planned to indicate the companies that are capable for cooperation, cooperative chains, and to play as for substitution. I'd like to note as well that similar measures are required in order to fight against the pandemic. In our EAEU, we mentioned the following activities. I'd like to note the measures that helped us to tackle various issues. And I would say that a ban was put on the export from the Union of the products that we need here, and up to September 21st, 2020. Also, the oversaturation of our market, we relieved on customs duty for some equipment as imported. Some equipment, some components, this relief is still valid, will be valid until March 31st, 2021. Probably it will be renewed and extended. And given the current turnover of our union, hopefully we'll be able to substitute for many products here locally, those imported. I think this approach helped us to cope with quite a serious obstacles. For instance, we encountered the need to not to play field checks or inspections, but rather to prescribe, to make changes to our documents and to implement the procedural video protocols to be held. This decision was approved by the Council of our Union in early 21. Hopefully all other countries will sign it, and it will help us to minimize the need of such field inspections in the Union and outside. Overall, I'd like to note that the market is now being re-established, is getting back to life. As projected in 2021, we expect there will be 3.3% growth. Therefore, in the third quarter 2021, the Russian economy will reach probably the pre-crisis condition, and in 2025, it will ensure a stable growth. Thank you, dear colleagues, for your attention. Thank you, Irina. In your last comment, you said that we will get back to growth. As for the pre-crisis numbers, I would say that it looks that there was only some adverse effects on certain industries. And I would like to ask you, we have now here a representative of real business, that is the head of international projects of Rusal, a United company, Anton Basilev. Anton, the Rusal company, as far as we know, is represented in 13 countries of the world. And we know that as recent as today, in our mailings, we wrote that Rusal announced it will acquire some assets in Germany. How do you think will it impact on the cooperation of German cooperators in aluminum industry? Good afternoon. Of course, this will have a certain effect. To put it briefly, I would like to complete this statement. In Germany, it is one of the key markets. We don't have other goods, but as for aluminium, right now we hold about 10% of the total consumption, and I would say that this cooperation has developed for about 20 years. A particular feature of our supplies is a very low level of CO2 emissions for Russian aluminum, which is due to Rusal having passed a very long way to reduce CO2 emissions. And today, German clients, German customers, they certainly prefer the low-carbon aluminum that we produce. Yes, we signed an agreement to purchase the oldest aluminum manufacturer in Germany, that is Aluminum Rheinfels, which is located in the southern part of Germany on the border with Switzerland. And the record of it counts more than 100 years. It was founded in 1898. Presently, this company that produces mostly alloys for automobile industry, it owns more than 30%, more than 30 patents received for unique alloys that we are going to develop further. And in our turn, it's the supply chain where we supply a primary aluminum produced using low carbon hydro sources of energy. And then in Germany, it's transformed into alloys. The alloys which are designed deliberately as adjusted for the needs of the automobile industry, in this case is Germany. Indeed, it's a very good step forward in our cooperation. But I would like to note as well, beside this agreement, after the bankruptcy of Aluminium Fenton, resulting from, in particular, the crisis, the pandemic crisis, and the slumped demand for German automobile products, so to say. I'd like to note as well that probably only China gave the helping hand to German car manufacturers. Do you trust the perspective of this plant development and the entire German automobile industry? Oh, well, I would say that the German automobile industry has made choice for aluminium, as well as all other industries, which, as for the Green Deal that was announced by the EU, and which is being supported by Germany quite intensively, they chose aluminium not only for the automobile or transport industry, but also for construction and packaging. Everybody knows how often aluminium, how widely is used, for also in aluminium cans, which is one interest with almost all the manufacturers, including other packaging materials. We can say that a very good perspective in Europe and in Germany in particular, as the main hub of the EU in all these industries, to us, Ruslan, it is a priority market. And we hope indeed that the ongoing growth of aluminium consumption in Europe and Germany will continue. And we are not just prepared, we are willing and making steps so that these supply chains not just be ruptured in these dire times, but also be strengthened further. They are absolutely mutually beneficial, and we are getting convinced in it, having been for longer. Many thanks. Let us revisit the outcomes of our survey that we have on the slides. Let's take a look at that. Well, the turnover has shrunk insignificantly in the majority of cases. I can see 57%. In principle, we see that the share of those who have not noticed the pandemic at all or any violation, it has slumped significantly. It was 33% in October. Now we have only 18% of those. And I believe that step by step, all of this is catching up the pre-crisis time. And the companies in the deep reprocessing chain are noticing it more and more. Let's go to our next speaker. Let's switch to German. Mr. Leuschner, you're an expert in logistics of the Eurasian Economic Union, EAEU. And during the last year, you witnessed that the customs duties have changed significantly. The very acute shortage of containers, railway containers in Germany. What future do you see in the continental transportation using containers? What steps will see for the future? Indeed, Vladimir. As for the prices, indeed, the turnover has progressed in 2020 and now. About 540,000 containers, rail containers, have been transported from China to Europe. The pandemic has resulted in the demand for clean transportation with attractive prices has risen, and goods from China going to Europe they're getting with a more and more stable traffic, with a more than 30% growth versus 2020. What will we have in 2021? Well, we believe and we know that right now we are in dire straits geopolitically and geoeconomically, where the wide variety of legal entities, companies, logistics, the infrastructure, the community of companies, all these certainly affects the end product. We have about 25,000 companies, all in all, from various countries, which interact quite closely with each other. In the 2021, a major role will be played by administration, management, with respect to the containers. We certainly would like to improve all of it so that larger volumes will be processed. And we hope that by 2025 we'll be able to have adjusted all our supplies with more than 1 million containers in use. And
so we are actually moving ahead like this. And of course, digital transformation plays a major role here, increasing role. And that gives us a huge benefit, advantage in logistics. Well, in fact, what I mean is that we're virtually neutral in terms of carbon emissions, and we are still improving the system. So quite many people are talking now about joint economic space, stretching from Vladivostok to Europe, about the neutral zero CO2 emissions. So what do you think? Are there any possibilities for friendly cooperation in logistics, I mean? Well, of course, just let's talk about this initiative. You know, this concept has been developed over the last 5 years, and we do have the common market here. We would like to get some more arguments from our practical expertise, and also it's also a political question. The issue of recognition, paperless document circulation, customs. So there are certain practical solutions that we are trying to develop right now. So many working teams have devoted their time to this question. As for logistics, of course, we do have proposals for Russia, for Moscow and Brussels, for Eurasian Economic Union. We need to build this dialogue on the same level. And we know that in the logistics corridor between Europe and Asia, people mainly speak Russian. Therefore, it's quite important to go ahead and to ensure that there is more motivation for Russia. As regards logistics, we are discussing specific proposals on power generation, on how to organize paperless document circulation without bureaucracies, how to sort out different processes, certificates, CO2 emissions, marketing, and political strategy and orientation, so as to involve as many politicians as possible in our dialogue. So we need to streamline our activities in this logistics corridor, especially as regards the globalization processes, and we need multimodal solutions where we can. So we are actually discussing these things. Oh yes, that's. Thank you very much. You mentioned logistic chains, and cooperation with Eurasian Economic Union. We cannot go ahead without Kazakhstan. It's one of the Eurasian countries bordering on China. That's why my question is to Mikhail Quiring. He's an attorney at law partner at Rethmann partner, Central Asia. So what partners are you working with within this framework? Well, actually, your words that you cannot bypass Kazakhstan is quite true, indeed. Well, possibly not logistically speaking, but as regards economy and politics, and it's also stipulated geographically. The first president of Kazakhstan, Nazarbayev, is open to that, and of course we are viewing Kazakhstan as a perfect location for German companies with really very good conditions and profitable conditions. When 15 years ago we entered the Russian market, and we saw after entering the Russian market the German companies, and I myself was witness to that, witnessing this for 8 years. There were only benefits from that. And of course, it's quite important that there's a good chance for employers to make decisions who they are going to recruit. If you look at German companies, quite many of them have branches and even industrial production branches in Kazakhstan. Some parts are supplied from Russia within the framework of the so-called free economic or special economic zones. And we also have ideas to go further, to make one step further in this direction. And of course, if we look at Southeast, there are potential candidates such as Uzbekistan there, which has the status of an observer right now within the framework of Eurasian Economic Union. We are also considering hubs that can be linked to other markets in Southeast Asia. As regards investments in regions, are they mostly local investments, or are we looking on the Southeast Asian market as a whole, or are there any targets to aim to make the supplies via Russia? Well, I think it's probably more likely that we will there will be localized production in Kazakhstan and the local market, but also owing to added value chain in locations, we can stick to our concept how we can achieve the certain targets so as to import these products back into Russia. Oh, that's quite interesting. So in this case, let me ask another logistic company asking the following questions. You, as head of the company, Rhenus AG, what kind of impact do you see from these supplies? Okay, I see that the communication has been established. Yes, I heard your question. If we talking about logistic supply chains in conditions of the pandemic, I can say that in our part of Europe, there's quite much is going on. We have to think about Brexit and other things. due to the pandemic and this situation, many countries had to close their borders. And if we compare this with a detailed map of process adaptation and how this proceeds, imports and exports within the framework of Eurasian Economic Union, you can see that, probably the ties are much stronger here as compared to our part of Europe. So what's going on now? Let's get back to your question. Well, of course, we can look at how the GDP is changing, that there are less shipments, but of course we can look into the future, expecting what's going to happen next, and we are expecting some shifts. What I mean is that the routes will change, especially for supplies in the farming industry, in this sector where the shipments are more intensive. Whether we talk about protection or protection of animals and plants. So if we compare Eurasian Economic Union and the western part of Europe, I think in Eurasia there's been much less impact. Thank you very much. So thanks a lot for your optimism. I think there's another trend that we are facing across the world, digital transformation. So together with you, jointly with you, with your company over the last 5 years, we've been witnessing the processes in this area. And also, well, you mentioned the so-called Green Corridor project, and Mr. Oreshkin, Minister Oreshkin also said in last year at the conference in Berlin that this project is being scrutinized now. So what the question is, what's the status right now? What speaks in favor or against this project? Against, I can't say if there's anything against this project. I think it's a very plastic, it's a very agile project. So when, for example, on a regular basis in Sheremetyevo, we see regular flights, landing, airplanes landing, and I can say that it's a very good statistics of shipments, cargo shipments, which means that you can take your luggage and go through the so-called green passageway, and where the Russian customs officers are present, and they control. They say that everything is fine. So the same, by analogy, we can talk about transportation of goods. So we've been discussing this over the last 5 years, and we are really happy that on the Russian party, we see quite active response, good feedback, and there's a recent conference which was devoted to that particular subject, where our employees were engaged in conversations, in negotiations. So they were talking about whether this corridor is really needed and when it's going to be opened. So as regards the future exchange of goods and the supply chains, any minor thing plays a very important role. So the question is who signs what, and who exactly trades in what particular commodity. And of course the Chamber of Commerce and the German delegation and the German economy on the whole, of course, I think everything will be in their disposal to go ahead with this initiative. Now the question, as I view it from the technical viewpoint, I can say that professionally I've been watching this more than 1 year, and I can say that the Russian customs service is cooperating, is interacting on this platform. The platform where you can operate PDF documents. It's quite reliable. And the same refers to Sheremetyevo, where you can see the commodities turnover, which... so you asked me how it is going to proceed. So we will be really happy if the Russian Federation will look at our company as a good partner, and we will be really happy, and we're going to watch jointly what's going on in this area. So I think we work quite much in Germany and Switzerland. In fact, 1 million transactions in the customs area in our company. So we work quite close with the European Union. So we will be really happy if we can evaluate these activities jointly with our colleagues from the Customs Committee, and if we can develop our ideas further. So in closing, I would like to say what exactly speaks in favor of such events, the exchange of goods and commodities between the two regions. We would like to see this exchange on a professional level. So that's really nice if we can facilitate these processes, and when we understand how these processes proceed. I don't see anything that would be against this process, so I don't see any objections to this process. In fact, no, nothing comes into my mind, and so I believe that we jointly with the Chamber of Commerce, we will be working together in this area, and all the transportation, all the shipments will be done on such a high level. So I think Ruslan Davydov will join us shortly. Well, perhaps he would be able to comment. So, but let me ask Anton Bazulev from Rusal. Company sells aluminum on many European, on many markets, including European markets. You must have heard about the Green Corridor. And do you think it would be interesting for you to take part in that? So since you sell aluminum abroad, so what's your take on this kind of supplies and how you organize your business? Maybe so there are some specific features. From the logistical viewpoint, well, perhaps we are on different levels. We operate on different levels. I mean, our colleagues and our company, because they represent mostly the shipments industry. So it might be quite hard for me to discuss the specific features of the Green Corridor. But personally, I can say that it was quite often we've faced, and we still face, different nuances of logistical activity, including the customs clearance with some countries. But the more experience we accumulate and the more supplies we receive, the better is our work. But the one thing which is a little bit disappointing, that in these supplies the customs tariffs are now applied, which are not in the interest of European consumers, as we are the producers and suppliers on the Eurasian territory, and mostly at least 90% of such products on the
European Union, and the European manufacturers are unable to meet the demand. And as for our product lines, only about 25% of the demand is met by local manufacturers. So we are part of the companies which supplies the remaining 15%. Nonetheless, despite the crisis and the pandemic, the talk is underway that the EU it is applying actually the tariff, the import tariff for our products. But they would like the metal and steel products of the energy-intensive industries also to put under the carbon tax. We don't understand that our European colleagues seek to offset the costs that they incur in quota trading. Nonetheless, I'd like to remind them it's being forgotten during all these discussions. They are rather more political right now. That the customs duties payments they are paid by the importer, by the purchaser, and any customs tariff and the arrangements for that, it's still the customs tariff, which would apply irrespective on which basis. As a carbon payment, it will be a customs tariff anyway in foreign trade. Low carbon aluminum, as we have heard, does it affect anything? I'm as a common person, I think if there is no carbon, there is no tax. Yeah, it's very low carbon, our aluminum. If we take the average for Europe, carbon content in 1 ton of aluminum, with the European manufacturers, it's about 7.5 per 1 ton of primary aluminum. In our case, it's below 4. That is almost half of that. Nonetheless, the carbon is still there in each ton of aluminum, because not only power is used, but also other materials are used, made of carbon-based, carbon-containing materials. You also know that there are varied approaches how to count carbon. For instance, logistically, CO2 emissions can be counted during the logistics, during transportation. Also be counted in the carbon tax. I'd like to note that our industry, I'd like to reiterate, is deficiency-based as for primary aluminum. It has summarized, and our colleagues, the European Association of European Aluminum Manufacturers, they also said to the European Commission they do not regard these on-border carbon duty as an efficient support for aluminum production. I would not like to mention any industry here. Why are we most concerned about that? Primarily because with the new customs barriers and duties that may be imposed, the number one sufferer will be a German consumer or an EU consumer. In particular, if a customs tariff is introduced for all the countries, the European consumer will pay it. I understand the price will go up anyway. I'd like to reiterate for the low supply aluminum. We should debate it more intensively in our discussions and take a look at the industry quite carefully. In the deficit-based industries, probably some other compensations to be provided, not related to customs tariffs. This example has shown us how European regulators provide support. So it makes sense now probably to ask Irina Deineko from the Ministry of Trade and Industry, how do you fight against the negative pandemic implications? And whether you have in your action plans, could you share your action plans how to support Russian manufacturers in this particular year? Could you surprise us with anything pleasantly? Hello once again, the participants. We designated at the very beginning that our key measures are being taken in our Eurasian Economic Union. The key tools are promoting production, for instance, banning export, this, and also zeroing feedstock duties. And as taken together, these measures allow us to settle well the situation in the industry. The logistics is good, but only in the case if everything operates, everything goes smooth in a due way, is an excellent subject matter. Mr. Quiring, how do you think? What's the current state with the currency exchange in your region? In all the Central Asia countries, it's about the same. I would like to say that we operate primarily in Kazakhstan, and it seems to me we should understand that other countries have different laws and habits and customs, and there's no any stoppage in currency exchange, in currency purchase. If I go to a bank in Germany, then this German bank would also demand a set of documents from me, and I would say that our government, for instance, in Kazakhstan, they have certain interests with regard to currency exchange, currency circulation, funds transfer through banks. In this case, well, we mean the fiscal interests relating to money laundering. And we should also, for instance, we're supposed to obtain a permit from the central bank. If, for instance, 200,000 euros, we are supposed to transfer. And I believe this application has to be filed. And only after you obtain the permit, you're supposed to operate. There are some other Central Asia countries. And we say that, for instance, in Uzbekistan, well, we have discussed it. Uzbekistan boasts one of the strictest legislations on currency exchange. There are certain restrictions there. You're supposed to pay certain fees if you buy currency. But it is possible to import a currency from this country as well. Therefore, we discuss currency exchange freedom. And we also say there are certain hurdles that we encounter in our legal practice. It's important to say how a transaction is conducted, how it's arranged. And we discuss certain rules German companies are supposed to abide by if they do business and they enter into currency transactions. So one needs to know what rules there are and to follow those. Thank you, Mr. Quiring. Well, Ruslan Davydov has joined in, who's first deputy head of the Federal Customs Service of the Russian Federation. Ruslan, well, we are very glad that you found time. And right now, in the last 30 minutes, we have discussed the green corridor between Russia and Germany, and EAEU and EU. If you could comment on that. And I'd like also to ask you, probably this issue has been mulled over by all the Russian press. That's about customs declarations. The related procedure recently changed. These customs declarations are now being distributed like electronic declarations, being distributed between various centers. How does this system operate? After some weeks that it has been used, any changes being planned to that? And is this operation normal with this customs declaration exchange? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I don't know how to do it in a better way. I wanted to make a short presentation and then answer questions. Let's do it this way. How much time do I have? Well, in principle, it's a live dialogue. If you could tell us for 2 or 3 minutes about the dispatching procedure, we could discuss it as a debate. We could tailor it as a debate. Nonetheless, I'd like to show you some slides for you to understand better from all of us from. If you start with dispatching right away, it's the last stage of a very long process. I'm afraid that not everybody will understand it just from scratch. We have 20 more minutes. I'll be brief, dear colleagues, dear friends. Last year, we wrapped up, following the presidential decree, a comprehensive program of the Federal Customs Service development through 2020. Well, where did it come from? And what has happened to it over the past time? Just a couple of words about our foreign trade turnover. You can see that in 2020, the relocation continued of our foreign trade partners. China getting more and more lead compared with other countries as a partner, and Belarus is now also advancing fast. If you take its total foreign trade turnover, it comes third on the Russian list. As a matter of fact, the automatic dispatching of the customs declaration exchange, this is the outcome of a multi-year effort since 2008, when in September 2008, the first e-declaration was put on the internet. Well, what are the landmarks? In 2010, the first centers of electronic declaration emerged. They were the prototype of our current e-declarations. In 2014, the e-declarations became mandatory, and then all the processes were automated. In 2018, we got down to implement the comprehensive program that I mentioned. For this, and in parallel, we automated all the IS, information system of the customs services. For instance, in developing the single account, the single divisional account. While previously the account holder was linked to one of the same customs office with all the his funds are there, and he would apply he would file his declaration only with that customs center. Now the situation has changed. He or she has that single customs account that can be used all over Russia. We see that about 35 million messages in real time are being processed by our systems. Well, now, automation. Automation as part of our comprehensive program. I'd like to save some time here. As of now, as for the law-obedient participants with the low risk, the share of automatic issue of export or import is now fairly high. If you are in the category of the low risk user, then your declaration is processed automatically, issued automatically, electronically, just within 5 minutes. Well, as a matter of fact, our foreign trade participant, well, if he's or she is low risk, he has no contact at all with the customs office. He or she works with the e-customs system. I mean, has no contact at all with a specific individual customs officer. What did occur as a result of this comprehensive program? By 2018, we had more than 600 places of customs registration. where we could file our declarations. As a rule, they were in bond warehouses, these products, as held by commercial companies or privately owned. Well, we have a saying here, the one who pays, he orders the dance, the tune. Well, the music was not always pleasant. I mean, due to the corruption risks and some other things that may not occur. As a result of our reform that we completed last December, 16 e-declaration centers were established. We looked up yesterday that 23.5% of our declarations are executed outside the customs, the e-custom declaration centers. They are just the residual things, and which are executed on paper sometimes due to certain decisions made by the government, including some military shipments. Well, you can see it here on the map. Our rules are, well, the sequence of e-declaration filing. It's important to answer the question you asked because it correlates in full with e-declarations as a practice. The e-declaration centers are, as a system, are tailored so that they meet the needs of e-declaration processing. The first level of dispatching or declaration distribution over the goods, I would say it's not just a piece of news. We mentioned it starting 2017. Since that time, we have been tailoring our e-declaration centers. So level 1 of e-declaration allocation or dispatching for the respective goods are the categorizing of goods which are under excises. They are all declared and they are sent to the e-center and to the excise center.
Therefore, these declarations are filled out precisely in these electronic declaration centers. So the next level of distributing this declaration corresponds to the type of transportation on the border, where we understand there are certain specific features for different types of transport because the place where the goods are delivered usually should match the warehousing facilities and the places where these goods have to be declared. So let me cite an example of the Netherlands customs service. About 20% of all customs services are done in such a manner. The customs clearance center in the Rotterdam seaport, which handles all the marine seagoing vessels, all the vessels, and also the center of customs control in the Schiphol airport, which handles all the air cargo delivered by air. So we have 3 centers of electronic declaration for seagoing vessels, so the Baltic, Novorossiysk, and Vladivostok, which provide services for northwestern water basin and northern seas. In Novorossiysk is the Azov and Black Sea water area, and Vladivostok is the Pacific Ocean water area. So, in fact, whatever is delivered to the Moscow air hub, so there are certain features which mean that 86% of all cargo arrives at the Moscow air hub. I mean, most of this cargo is delivered by air transport, as they are. The documents are executed in the territorial central electronic declaration center. The declaring party is also as the subject of economic activity, and also it is supposed to submit tax return. All the just for a better understanding, I think our audience is mostly non-professionals, not only professionals, I'd rather say, in the customs clearance area. So just for laymen, please, can you say that for example, from St. Petersburg, this customs declaration can be transferred to Vladivostok? No, the system initially was planned as it is, as it works, but there have been some variations due to some personal or maybe sometimes not quite clear preferences of the declaring party. Beginning February 1st, we automatically redistributed all the decks in such a manner. But here we have demonstrated, the situation on the 1st of January about 8%, on the 1st of February 4.7%, and on the 15th of February 4.5% of all declarations have gone through this electronic format. Monday, the hardest day in the week, when our declaring parties work under pressure. It's a peak pressure. That's when 4 to 5% of all declarations are redistributed. In the meantime, this does not impact the logistics of the declaring party, as we are talking only about processing the electronic documents where the certain shipments, some cargo is declared. So we can see that there is some dynamics in your figures, some improvements. It's down to 4% now, as you said. Using this opportunity, I wanted to ask you another question. We've talked quite much about digital transformation in this debate, and we see how the Federal Customs Service is developing at a fast pace. And I've seen quite recently in the press that you're working on alleviating the systems of customs payments. You mentioned one of the players. Are you planning, is there any schedule that in your plans already when the Customs Service will be able to redistribute all these duties, VAT, and everything that, will they have a chance to use the electronic wallet to make payments in this service? Well, you see, under the Customs Code, the payments are affected, the date of the goods release is the date of payment. But they have to be done in accordance with the format of payment, whether it's excise tax, customs duties, or other taxes. Well, of course, all of them are classified, and they have to be taken into account in the Treasury. So any participant will be able to see in the declaration how the payments, the taxes, are distributed in accordance with the system of payments. So when in fact the first method is applied, we make adjustments to the declaration only in cases where the system of risk management is enabled, and if we need to validate something. We're talking about digital transformation. Well, in fact, we have approved the strategy of development up to 2030. And as you can see here, the use of methods of artificial intelligence, the self-learning, risk management systems, And also we pay a great deal of attention to work in the customs clearance points, because that's one of the important things, to get through the border as soon as possible, especially in the motor roads and in the ground customs offices. These points are under the aegis of Ministry of Transport, of Ministry of Transportation, Construction, but we still try to arrange the so-called intellectual smart customs clearance points for all types of transport, motor transport, sea-going vessels, and air transport, so as to ensure maximum digital transformation for all vehicles. Thank you, Ruslan Valentinovich. Thanks a lot. Would like to avail myself of the opportunity because we do have a few practical logistics specialists. So my question to Mr. Rhenus. Mr. Rethmann, you are into practical activities, so to say, as you represent a logistics company. So what do you think from the logistical company? Can you describe the situation? Yes, certainly. I think that the situation is quite simple. Today, within the framework of this conference, we have learned about the new important tasks that we are facing. Climate, healthcare. It's a highly important subject. If the goods, commodities go through via the border, and if the services are provided efficiently, so then everybody will benefit from that. But I've already said that we in Russia work quite actively. Digital transformation is underway in Russia, so I think we will achieve good results if we can proceed further in this way. We have been investing over the last 5 years in the green customs corridor. So if we are going to cooperate as efficiently as we do now, we would be able to complete this project, to accomplish that. And this active joint cooperation is for the benefit of all of us, and we are talking about digitization of customs processes. We need a healthy climate, we need healthy personnel. We would like to see a timely supply of goods. Mr. Leuschner also wanted to add his comment on that. Please. I just wanted to say that I was among the first foreigner who got a customs license. It was in 1998, and I saw that there were always some kind of restrictions because in the Russian Federation there was a system, and there still is a system of limitation of foreign trade activity and the customs business. Your concept up to 2030 implies that there will be no such restrictions, and there will be more liberalized system of cooperation with European and German companies, because these rights will apply to more subjects operating on the Russian market. We only have 2 minutes left, and because we are in online format, so I would like to listen to a very brief answer to this comment. Yes, thanks a lot. What I would like to say, first of all, is that it's quite natural, our dear colleagues from Germany have been working since 1998 on the Russian territory, so they could really appreciate that a huge leap forward in automation of all customs procedures. A great step forward that we made, especially in the last 3 years. So in terms of exports, I would like to say that more than 40% of all export declarations have been generated automatically. There's an automated generation, and the natural expansion of foreign presence who could work as representatives or deal in customs operations. I would like to say that it's not the Russian customs office, but rather the questions of regulations issue of the European Customs Union. So we have bilateral agreements with the German Customs Authority. Nevertheless, today we still cannot resolve the issue which Mr. Rethmann has mentioned. I mean, the question of information exchange between the customs services, because it's the prerogative of the European Commission. And well, we have the Eurasian Economic Commission in the Russian Federation, which is dealing with the legal frameworks and the legal regulations. So the question of residency or the use of residency status or non-residency status, I mean, who has the right to declare goods and services? Well, I think this discussion on harmonizing the norms and standards will continue further. So let's continue our discussion as the work team on customs and logistics is planned to take place on the 25th of February. So we will still have a good chance this year to get in touch and to converse on the subject. So we'll have more time for that. So let me say thanks to all participants in today's discussion for your time. And in fact, that's the last task I'm facing right now, is to invite everyone to get back to the main hall, as I'm about to move there right now. I've got this T-shirt today on me, so I think that the chief coach of the Russian national team will put his signature on that. So I wish you luck, less customs barriers and more customs duties to everyone.
You are overcoming the difficulties and hurdles. Without motivation, you can't achieve your maximum. You were a goalkeeper, and in Spartak, in Lokomotiv. You have been playing in Spartak, in Lokomotiv. You were playing internationally in Dynamo Dresden. The Germans know it. You played in Innsbruck, in Tyrol. You were coaching internationally in Aker Tyrol. You were a coach in Spartak, Dynamo Moscow, in Warsaw. Exactly, yes. Okay, what matters after all? Is it attack or defense? I think that attack is the best defense. Another thing is that the contestants differ, and sometimes you work with San Marino, sometimes you work with the Spaniards. You can't attack much the Spaniards. You have to defend well to have a chance, like we had at the World Cup. But so let me repeat again, there are teams that can play on their own, in Germany in particular. There is a team like ours, and sometimes we have to adjust depending on our contestants, because, you know, to run forward, eager to attack. You know, a boxer should never attack if he doesn't know how to defend. And what do you think, as a footballer, as an expert in football, what would you recommend to the managers, to the management in sports and business? Is the situation similar? Well, it is, I would say, to some extent, because business is a competitive environment. You have opponent, and if you manufacture the same product or if you are in the same business, you have to clearly define your goals. You have to know well the needs of the market in your product. You should know how to market it, what your challenges and goals should be. I guess you need to know how to become interesting for your consumers. I think the situation is competitive, and you should be ahead of the competition. One more question, and this question is, I think, a question many managers or yes, people on managerial positions were eager to ask you. At the World Cup in 2018, Russia was quite successful, but Russia was not one of the favorites. Nobody could ever think that it's ranked top 4 in the world, in the top 4 globally, but you were phenomenal. You almost reached semi-final, I would say. How did you manage, Stanislav?
So, how did you motivate your people? Well, it was training. We tested many athletes. We chose a way to pass. We were criticized a lot for our performance. 7 games we couldn't win prior to the World Cup. But there were strong teams such as France, Argentina, Belgium, Brazil. We couldn't afford confronting weak teams. We had to test ourselves, and it was hard, and we were criticized hard, but we did what we had planned. And the World Cup testified to the fact that we had been correct. And we played at home, and we played before our fans. The opening game gave a very good start not only to the Russian team away journey, but to the entire tournament. The whole world watched and witnessed and realized that Russia was a very good and kind country. I understand that training and preparation is essential. Managers realize it only too well. And when everything goes well, it makes it easier. We have a language, we have a word, a trend, and I think everything went well in your case, everything flew well, but when it wasn't the case, Germany does not impress us a lot, and it is the case with Russia. How can we find a way out of it? I may sound peculiar, but, no matter if you win or lose, no manager can get relaxed or strained. You don't have time to be in sorrow. You have to work in order to correct things. But when things go well, of course, you need to be aware too. You don't have to allow any star illness, and in either case, you need to realize that there are black and white sides in life, and you need to just believe what you're doing. You know that my team was asked a number of questions, both in St. Pete and Moscow, to ask you. So, who is your favorite player in Germany and in the Russian team, and or in the Russian league? I can think on just if I think of just one player, footballer, it wouldn't be fair, since The generation of the players I played with in Germany, Klinsmann, Matthäus, and others, they were world champions, so the entire generation was excellent, great athletes, powerful team. And I would single out the team of 1990 that won the World Cup, and Franz Beckenbauer was their coach. In Russia, I'm a goaltender, and Lev Yashin really gave us the legacy. First goaltender who was awarded the golden football. But Lev Yashin, I think, the best player. What national teams do you think are forerunners in the European Cup and the World Cup? Well, World Cup is too far away. As for the European Cup, Belgium is ranked first, and we played with them in the qualification round. We lost both games, and we will have to play with them in the group again. A very strong team, excellent players, great coach, and I think this is the generation to win. As for Russia, France, Germany, Spain, they are also forerunners. And for us, we need to prepare the best team we can. 2 games will be played in St. Pete, and we would like to qualify from the group. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to offer you some surprise. The CDF studio of Vladislav, let's walk that way. Once I wanted to get to the CDF, now I have the chance in Moscow only. I wanted to become a footballer, but I had to play basketball because I'm quite tall. So 5 balls each. 3 balls each. Who starts? Now, your turn. Great professional. A touch of professionalism. It's a draw. 1-1, Russia, Germany, 1-1. So thank you, Stanislav. I'm coming back to the studio. Have a nice trip back home, and the best of everything to you. Dear guests, dear participants, it's my pleasure to declare the strategic conference on the partnership between Germany and Russia closed. It's true that we had a lot of interesting discussions. We shared a lot of interesting ideas, and I think now you are confident that relations between Russia and Germany are based on a number of pillars. We have pillars of cooperation in municipalities, in sports and culture and business. So the mosaic is so strong, and I'm certain that even in the next hard months, we will cope. And I would like to greet you in all the countries where you are, and I would like to greet you and thank you all who stayed with us.